Hello, and welcome to the Psych Leadership Podcast, the show that helps you understand the psychology of growth, leadership, and making big moves in your life and career. My name is Luke Upchurch. So happy that you took time out of your day to hang out with me. But today we're going to be talking about values at work and how aligning what you are with what you do will lead to true happiness. So many of you right now are probably at a point in your career where you're starting to think about what's next. Maybe that's, you're graduating from high school or college and you kind of have this image in your head of what does happiness look like? What am I going to go to school to study? What is it what do I want to be when I grow up, right? You have this mental image of what happiness looks like. Or maybe you've been in the workforce for a while and you're still trying to find that thing that gives you joy. Well, as you hit those career milestones, maybe a promotion, a raise, special recognition, sometimes they end up feeling strangely empty, like it wasn't as fulfilling as you thought it would be. Well, chances are, if that's the case for you, it's less about the title or the paycheck and more about the values. When the thing that we have to do every day, when our job itself lines up with what really matters to you, then success feels tangible. It feels like something that truly makes you excited, makes you want to get out of bed in the morning and go do that thing. But if there's a mismatch, then frankly it feels hollow. It doesn't quite feel worth doing. And today we're going to dig into how we can align your personal values with work and how that can transform beyond motivation into meaning and true stress fulfillment. So why do those values matter? Well, we talk a lot on this show about motivation, and we've visited in the past this concept called self-determination theory. I'm not going to get into the details of exactly how that works, but suffice it to say, in order to unlock intrinsic motivation, psychologists Ryan and DC talk about the necessary elements, the psychological components that you need to unlock that intrinsic motivation. So we've talked about that before. This isn't a conversation today about motivation. It's more about how do we take that to the next level? How do we take those motivating elements and move those into values so that you're not feeling disengaged or burnout or that nagging feeling that something is missing? So first, let's break down a little bit about that self-determination theory. Again, we've talked about this on this podcast before. This should not in any way be new information for you, but hopefully it's just a refresher. Okay. I've called this in the past, I've phrased this as the ABCs of motivation. You need three components. And so this is, as an individual, you need these things. As a leader, your team needs these things. But also, as for those of you that are transitioning into a new spot in your career, these are paramount in order for you to connect those values. So you need first autonomy. This isn't just freedom of choice. It's freedom to choose in a way that reflects what you care about most. Then there's relatedness, or as I call it, belonging. That goes beyond just being part of the cool kids club. It's being around people that share the same values as you, or at least respect your values and the individualism behind those values. And then competence is the idea that you don't have to know all things, but you have to have the ability to obtain that knowledge, right? So that you don't feel like you're fighting above your weight class, but you are right where you need to be. And when these values are aligned, then it moves beyond just in that intrinsic motivation that we talk about. Then you actually have meaning. So I'm going to give you a real world example here. Over the years in my day job, I have fallen into IT. It was kind of by accident. It just happened to be where the projects that I was pulled into tend to have an IT spin, probably because I kind of I enjoy that stuff. I'm the guy that wants the most up to date iPad, and I'm the guy watching the Apple releases when they come out, or catching up on AI. Right? I like that kind of stuff. It's just the nerd in me, I guess. Right? So I started getting pulled into those projects. It wasn't necessarily because I had certifications or that I had a background in them. It was just proximity, right? My ears perked up, so I asked different questions when those presentations were happening, and lo and behold, they pull me in. And so now I work kind of in the product management space in IT, specifically in cybersecurity. Well, that's all good and well. I mean, I'm blessed to have a job. I'm blessed to get a paycheck that allows me to support my family, that allows me to pursue my passions and so on. But it isn't something that excites me, that gets the heart racing, that I don't wake up in the morning, just jump out of bed, super excited for the job that I'm going to do. I do the job because I'm getting paid to do the job, and because it allows me to pursue my other passions. Here recently, I guess a couple years ago, for those of you that know me personally, I started struggling with some health issues. It's a long story, but psoriatic arthritis. And if you've ever heard of the disease or know anybody that deals with it, there are days where my joints hurt so much that I have to really talk myself into needing that second cup of coffee. Not because I'm worried about caffeine intake or something like that, but because it's down a flight of stairs, and my hands are killing me, and my knees and my ankles and all those joints bother me. And so I have to be super motivated to say, okay, that cup of coffee is important enough for me to look past the pain that it's going to take for me to get that little bit of caffeine, right? So where I would take that, though, is if I flip the script a little bit. Every now and again, I get the chance to take off of my day job, and I end up working with Rise Up Academics. Maybe I have to teach a class or something like that. Well, on those days, my joints don't hurt any less, but I care less about the fact that they hurt, if that makes sense. So I'm on those days, I have to physically go into a school, and I stand in front of a classroom, and I'm trying to engage the students and get them excited about the lesson and what it is I'm trying to convey to them. That's a challenge. But because the values of that type of work align with my own, I do that work even though I'm not getting paid a dime for it. I look past the physical pain that it's going to put me in. I look past the inconvenience that I'm going to have to physically go in. And I know that probably doesn't sound like much to many people, but I'm used to a job that I get to work from home, and I'm blessed to be in that position. And frankly, because of my health issues, I don't know that I could accept a full-time job that I had to work any other way. If I had to physically go into the office, I probably wouldn't stay at that job very long. But my point is that I do what I need to do for the day job because that pays the bills. And again, I'm blessed and proud to be doing that. But I'll do the stuff for free. The Rise Up Academic stuff, I'll get out of bed. I'll physically go in the office. I'll be hurting, and I will pay for that physically and mentally later. That will be a deficit in my tank, so to speak. But I'll do that because it aligns to my values. And so those of you that are thinking about what is it that I want to be when I grow up? What type of job do I want to have? I want to really challenge you to think about what are my core values, and does this align to it? When I was coming out of college, I had this thought in my head that I wanted to go into. Initially, it was the military. And then later on, it was, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a heart surgeon. But then I also really put a lot of value on family and having a family. And I started kind of pulling away. I ended up deciding not to go down the medical path because I was worried that despite the money, despite the prestige of being a heart surgeon, that I wouldn't be able to see my family as much. And so as you kind of run things through that filter, I really want you to go through that practice. And let's talk about some practical tools, some things that you can do right now to make sure that the ideal that you have in your head, that ideal job, that career path, I want you to think through, am I excited about this because of the prestige, the power? Is it the money? Is it the type of work? What values make this meaningful to me? So it makes sense then to reflect on that a little bit. So what I'd like you to do is grab a piece of paper. You can do this now, you can do this later, but grab a piece of paper and write down your top 5 personal values. What are the things that you are not willing to compromise? And this can be anything. Like I've got a buddy of mine that is super, super religious, and it doesn't matter how much money you pay him. If you ask him to work on a Sunday or a Wednesday when he is devoted to his church, the answer is no. Not maybe, not possibly, unequivocally, no. That is a value he is not willing to compromise on. Okay? So I want you to take an honest assessment. Write down, what are the top 5 personal values that I have? Okay. So when I think of that, for example, I I was always raised in a household that your word is your most valuable possession. That just the idea that my name is on a job or a task, that should mean something, that should carry weight. And so because of that, I am not willing to compromise my integrity. I will not do something that is dishonest. I will not do something that is deceitful or cheating somebody, right? So integrity is a personal value that I am not willing to compromise, not under any circumstances. So write those down, and then I want you to think about that ideal job. What is it, the job that you are trying to go to school to obtain? What do and this can be I'm trying to get there, or I'm already in this career path and I'm just not quite to that job. Or maybe you've been in this job for a while. Maybe the money is perfect for you, but there's still that empty feeling inside. So I want you to write down those top 5, and then I want you to compare that to a future ideal of the job that you're targeting, or maybe the job that you're in right now. And then start figuring out what is missing. Does the job that you want to have or that you currently have, does it match up, or are there clear and obvious gaps? Okay, that at least will tell you, am I on the right path, or do I need to pivot? So let's go back to my heart surgeon example. I said that I wanted to be a heart surgeon because I wanted to do that type of work. I wanted to help people. Let's be honest, I wanted the money too, right? Had I gone through that exercise then, I could have easily pivoted to be a different type of doctor. Maybe a heart surgeon wasn't the spot if I had a value of family. If spending time with my family is a core value that I was not willing to compromise on, well, then maybe I could have been a different type of doctor, right? Maybe I could have shifted that. I obviously shifted completely away, but that's not something that you have to do. The next thing I want you to think about is, especially if there's a gap and that begins to kind of shape, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, right? Now we have to start thinking through, well, how do I get there? Typically, as you start interviewing for that ideal job, that perfect fit job, they usually save some time at the end where you get to ask some questions. So hopefully, before you even applied for the company, you've done a little bit of research on the company. Make sure that at least outwardly, at least what they put on their website, at least what's on their mission statement, that their values match up to yours, right? Like I said that integrity was a core value of mine. So if a company is known for maybe not having that integrity, Am I going to put my name in the hat for them? Well, no, right? I've already kind of filtered them out. But in the interview, you can take that a step further. So, what I share on my website is what I want the world to see. On the interview, I want you to ask, can you share a time when the company values shaped a major choice? Or what value guides decisions in this organization? What values, plural, what values guide decisions in this organization? So ask point blank and see if their answer matches up. Okay. Most often, where a company invests their money is where their values are. That's one of the things I love about the company I work for now. They say that they value the community, that they, try to empower the community to make positive health decisions. Well, just last month, they had a big community day where they basically did not do the mainstream job. And it was encouraged emphatically that everybody volunteer and go out, and they did everything from packing food to reading to kids. I mean, the whole nine. They were all over the place. And I really value that. So, last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to think back at a time when you felt the most alive, the most authentic in the work that you did. And this can be a time when you volunteered somewhere. Pardon me. This can be a time when a special project that you did at work. Or maybe you're lucky enough that this is your day in, day out job. Think of the thing that you would gladly do for free and find a way to get somebody to pay you for that. But if you can just write down on that same piece of paper where you wrote your goals before, I want you to write down what is the project or the thing that I did that I felt honored to be a part of. And then I want you to flip the script. What was a project that I did that sucked the life out of me, that I hated every day of it? Chances are, when you look back at your values that you wrote down that you were unwilling to compromise on, chances are that's the roadmap. That will match up to the type of job that you really love. All right, so folks, we are just about out of time. My closing remarks for you today: understand that money and titles and all those things will fade. Eventually, you're going to look back on your career and you're going to want to know, did I create a legacy? Did I create something that my family is proud of, that I can be proud of? Or did I just work for the money? Believe me when I say you don't want to be on the latter half of that. You don't want to look back at a lifetime and say, well, I got paid well, but I had to sell my soul to do it. All right, folks, that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. If you found this helpful, think about sharing it with somebody who feels stuck or is searching for meaning in their work. And remember, growth starts with knowing who you are and leading from that place. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the podcast. Thanks so much for your time today. If you like this content, I'm going to ask that you consider a small donation. Every little bit helps, but this allows us to continue not only doing the podcast, but actually offering the internship positions, the leadership conferences, as well as the in-person courses that we deliver to high school and college students. Think about hitting the donation button for me. And again, we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.